Yeah, this is Mike again. Just wanted to bring everybody up to date on the 66. What I wanted to show you today was the junk transmission that came from that 66, and here it is. Now, back out a little bit here. This is the input shaft, the front of the transmission. And what I want everybody to be aware of is the fact that if you look down in there, and I don't know how well you can see it, but there's two keyways. They're way down behind the seal there, and they're 180 degrees apart. Okay, they're in there, but I don't know that you can see them. Now let me show you this torque converter. Let's see. Let's see here. Now, torque converter. This is the torque converter for this transmission. And this shaft right here, this spline, there's splines down the center. I don't know if you can see them, but these teeth right here, this slot and this slot is 180 degrees apart. And what I would like to tell everybody is when you slide this torque converter back into this transmission on that shaft that I showed you, there's 3 clicks. There's the first initial click, then there's a second click for the second spline. Then when you get back into the transmission, you have a pump. And that's those 2 keys that are 180 degrees apart. They are keys that stick out and they act like a finger. And when you slide this torque converter into the transmission, this finger on each side, one here and one over here like this, when you slide that, you have to make sure that that torque converter goes all the way back until that key is locked, just like this. And same on this side. They're lined up, and you have to make sure that that key is locked all the way back, and that is your pump. And the problem that we had with this last transmission is the torque converter did not seat all the way back into the transmission, and it was squeezed together by the bell housing bolts, and it broke the pump. Because these keys right here were not engaged, these slots were not engaged to the pump keys. So it held the torque converter out and binded everything together and broke the pump. That's why the motor wouldn't turn. The motor was tight because everything was not pressed together so that it would turn freely. Another thing, if I turn this torque converter over, hold on. Another thing I wanted to tell you is this snout right here. This snout right here. This goes into the flywheel. There's a pilot hole, and this snout has to engage into that pilot hole. If it does not, your transmission will not slide together, and it can also cross bind. And what I mean by cross bind is it'll go in this way or this way. It has to be straight. And another thing I wanted to tell you, these lugs, I call them lugs. These lugs, ooh, I'm losing all kinds of fluid. Whoop, my bad. Better get out of the way, huh? Those lugs right there, they should be far enough back, and I'm about to get dripped on. They should be far enough back that when you put that transmission bell housing together and sandwich it onto the back of the motor, that those lugs should have about a close to a 1/2 inch gap between the front of the lug and the back of the flex plate or flywheel. Then what you do is, once you get your bell housing bolted up, and then by bell housing I mean that big bell right there with the holes in it, made it to the transmission, then you pull the torque converter forward and turn it until the flywheel holes line up with the bosses or the lugs on the torque converter there. Then you'll know that it's all locked together. I did not mate the transmission to the engine. It was pre-mated before I had installed it in the car, and I was told that it was tight, but I didn't want to take it apart, and that was my mistake. So what happened was, I went to a salvage yard, and a good friend of mine cut me a real good deal on the transmission that I put in, and I did not get any video of that. But here is the tail shaft. That is the shaft where the drive shaft connects to the slip yoke, and the slip yoke slides on to the tail shaft spline. The spline, it's also called the output shaft. So I have a slip yoke issue. Mine is not a slip yoke. I have to find one. I'm gonna have to change my yoke off my back of my transmission and go find a slip yoke so that the drive shaft will play in and out as the rear end squats over bumps in the road or weight that's applied to the body. So there's a little explanation on torque converter rights and wrongs. Make sure that you get the teeth on the torque converter, the keys on the torque converter, lined up and pushed back into the keys on the pump, or else you will break the transmission. Okay, well, I've got to build a cross member and get to work, so I just wanted to update everybody on transmission troubles. And that is what I found. Junk transmission. Why? Because someone did not lock the torque converter into the pump before they bolted the bell housing together, and they basically smashed the front pump and broke it. So be aware. Okay, we'll see ya.